Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTC QB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
Always a pleasure, Jim. Thanks for inviting me on.
The markets have picked up after last week's meltdown. Is this the real deal, or are we going to see another correction?
I doubt it. The markets were troubled by rising interest rates, and I think rates have further to go. Even though the business press is challenged every time we have a rally to give all the wonderful reasons why it's happening, yesterday being, earnings were coming in and they were good, and whatever worried us the day before ceased to be a worry. But I think the worries are still there, and I'm very skeptical about this rally.
Is it true the market is only supported by a handful of stocks and there are hundreds of losers right now?
Well, that's true. I mean, you've got the focus of almost the entirety of other people's money that these fund managers are paid to throw at a handful of stocks. I'm just watching Amazon and Apple. That's where quite a bit of it goes. And, that you don't have to be a genius in the money management business to just pick two stocks and keep bidding them up into the ionosphere, which is what they do.
And what about people holding other stocks? Are they dumping them or still holding on?
Well, there's certainly been a lot of insider selling based on what I've read. It's at a torrential pace, but yes, the majority of stocks aren't enjoying anywhere near the performance that we're seeing in Amazon, Apple, and of course today Netflix, which reported subscriber growth after getting manipulated lower the last reporting period on not so hot subscriber growth.
Netflix is trying to produce product which is different than Facebook, I would think, or Twitter, because they're not producing anything real, are they?
Well, to be as cynical about it as I can, they're like the new Disney. Disney stopped making good movies about 50 or 60 years ago, and they become more and more oriented toward movies written by machines. They take a focus group and they figure out what everybody wants. Then they make some of the worst movies you could possibly imagine. All the movies that Disney puts out are derivatives, they're rehashes, there's nothing creative about any of them. And the last really good movie that was out was good only because I guess it was Amy Adams' debut. But Netflix is seen as having refined that machine-written movie to a fine science. In other words, Netflix is so in tune with our movie-watching habits that they can produce movies that are absolutely guaranteed to make money. But and I have to say, I said I would be cynical about it. That may be the way to go in Hollywood. To just have it written. The movies these days aren't really geared to movie lovers. They're just even when I'm desperate to get out of the house and see a movie, I'll look and most of what's available is so bad that I won't go to the movies anyway. And so it's possible that Netflix may actually succeed on that old, I think it was P.T. Barnum statement that no one ever went broke underestimating the taste of the American public. So that's the kind of movies Netflix is producing. But I've seen a lot of content from them that frankly stinks. And I guess the market at this point is simply obsessed with seeing growth in Netflix subscriber roster, which puts their potential revenues on an incline more or less to infinity.
What I don't get is people who say, I just saw the trailer for this particular movie. The trailer looks terrific, so I have to go see the movie. I mean, that's like seeing a McDonald's commercial, I guess, and say, well, it was a good commercial. I better eat that hamburger. It's the same mentality. Yeah,
it really is. I think that the Hollywood model has essentially broken down. Most of what you see comes off Marvel action hero comic books, and none of the independent filmmakers, even the big studios, aren't willing to go against the openings of those action hero films. And of course, they thrive on the fact that so many, the market, the audience for those films likes to see them 3, 4, 5 times.
I wonder how can teenagers afford to take a date to a movie because the prices are so high, and the giant chocolate bars cost a fortune as well.
Yeah, it's. They're definitely getting economies of scale in the production, and you see a lot of actors that you've never heard of before. In fact, if you go to Netflix movie lineup, you'll see that you can go through 100 movies and not recognize a single name of an actor in any of those movies.
So obviously, if they can get the lines right, it's not the name, it's just getting the product out. Just like a hamburger flipper.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're putting, the movies are even more so than Disney achieved. They're on an assembly line process, and from the creative standpoint, these movies are produced with ruthless efficiency.
We'll have more from Rick Ackerman right after the break.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineered gold mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, do you think Tesla is going to survive in its current form?
I do. I mean, they're producing cars. It's really, they've got to work the kinks out of the production and supply chain. And I think they're still building a lot of these Series 3 cars, under tents. But, it looks like, Musk is still going to be in charge, even though they gave him a little bit more than a wrist slap for going out there with the tweets that said he was being, he had a deal lined up to take the company private. So I think they were a little bit harsh coming down on him because Tesla is not worth much without the managerial genius of Musk behind it. But even so, it's I guess if push came to shove and Ford magazine took over, they could probably make a go of it. The Tesla seems to be selling well, but it's going to be coming up against some real competition from some of the European marques, such as Jaguar for one, and BMW, Mercedes are all going to be producing cars that compete directly with Tesla's electric motor. So that's something that hasn't existed in the past.
Now, Tesla cars are semi-autonomous. If you're going in a straight line for a long time, I guess they can drive themselves. Do you think we're going to get true self-driving cars that people will trust anytime soon?
Not even. I think the idea of the self-driving car works really well if they're all self-driving. But I wouldn't trust self-driving with my life, in the state it's in right now. You occasionally read these horrific stories about, well, in one case, the the eye that controls the steering and the accelerator mistook a white panel truck for sunlight, and the driver died. And I can't just see sitting back and cruising along some highway at speed and thinking everything's all right. So I think what we'll actually see is sometime around 2020, more and more cars are going to come online with controls that are adaptable for self-driving, for auto driving, and we're going to see retrofits from maybe cars made 4 years hence, and from that year maybe moving forward. So it's slowly going to happen, but I think much more slowly than the hype we're reading would suggest.
It seems the self-driving cars do okay in set courses. So if you have an urban route that it always does, I guess it learns the route. Or long-haul truckers in Nevada, apparently they're running convoys of these self-driving trucks. But again, they have to have a keeper following them in case something goes wrong. So it's not totally self-driving.
Well, it's right. I mean, and again, the real problem is, that we're not all we're not auto driven. So as long as there are a few idiots and bumblers out on the road like me, sometimes your attention will lapse, and I just don't want to be the victim of a auto driving accident where somebody's attention has momentarily left the highway.
Or they confuse your car for a snowdrift.
Right, that can happen too. I've got a very old car that you could never retrofit, and I'm just thinking, how many of them are there out there? People, let's say, buying it's a Lexus. They just tend to last forever. So even a Lexus bought right now, someone might keep it for 10 to 15 years, and of course, as long as it's it's out there on the highway, it represents a threat in an otherwise automated grid.
And there's still the thrill of driving when you don't have to deal with rush hour. I mean, I'm a person who enjoys driving when I don't have to, beat traffic. So are people still going to want to drive cars?
I have a different take on that. I moved from Colorado to South Florida, and the driving here is as though there was never a state highway patrolman on the road. I'm doing 80, 85 on a 70-mile-an-hour road, and I got people passing me like I'm standing still, and they sometimes pass to the right of you. And even the cars doing 100, they get passed. I've seen motorcycles on this southern most part of I-95. I've seen motorcycles. They must have been doing it 140, 150 miles an hour. So the driving down here is really crazy, and I know a number of people who won't even get on the interstate highway. They basically take Dixie Highway or the U.S. Route 1.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, Uber is valued at $160 billion. They haven't made a penny. They lose about $3 billion every quarter. What's behind that valuation? Just
insanity. Last time I looked, Uber was valued at around $60 billion. Of course, it hasn't gone public, and there's discussion. There's a lot of hype behind that $160 billion figure. But by comparison, the two companies, L3 and Harris, that are negotiating what would be the largest merger ever to happen in the defense sector. All right. So the dollar amount there is $33.5 billion. So here we are with some company that makes an application on a phone and is very deflationary, puts a lot of cab fleets out of work, and it's valued at $160 billion. And that is so crazy, really, and I'm going to tell you why it's particularly crazy. Just as the Uber model was destructive of taxi fleet medallions, it destroyed the value in cab fleets, and it's got so many drivers on the road who have to put in 70 hours a week just to scrape by that you'd think, well, that they really did it. But in fact, there are models in existence right now that are destructive of Uber's model, and one of them is a software application that you or I could buy that could allow us tomorrow to go out and have our own Uber-like service. We could have a few drivers that work under this software, and we could go off the grid with respect to Uber and Lyft. So Uber and Lyft, in that respect, are challenged by software that can allow any individual to go out and entrepreneurially offer services that are identical to Uber's, including the insurance part of it.
The disappearance of journalist Amal Khashoggi and the Saudis saying if you criticize us in any way with this, we'll smack down your trade or cut off your oil. Is this business as usual now?
It is. When you looked at we were in pretty deep. Pretty much everyone on the U.S. side pontificated about how if it turns out that the Saudi regime had this journalist murdered, we could never ever do business with them. So we obviously have to do business with the Saudis. I don't know that they'd ever deliver on their threat to force oil prices up, but just the same, Saudi Arabia is really the centerpiece of anything that Trump hopes to do in the Middle East to help bring about a durable peace. And so it's a very delicate matter. If you read the description of what is supposed to have taken place in the consulate, this journalist was hacked to pieces, and it wasn't pretty. And it's one thing to say, I guess the Saudis were considering, and that was the word that was in the headline, they were considering applying that story that this was just rogue agents.
Wouldn't it mean that everybody in that consulate had to have taken part in it? You can't keep somebody screaming, to the end of their life secret in a building.
That's true. I mean, it's not like these rogue agents are going to take the fall, but I think that's probably what's going to happen. They're going to have to essentially delete the link that connects this murder directly to the royal prince.
People are saying we could be looking at $100 oil, or if things melt down over the Saudi incident, we could be looking at $400 oil. Do you think those numbers are realistic?
Not 400, but I have to say that if the Saudis said, well, screw you, we're just going to clamp down on oil supplies, they could easily force the price up to $150.
What would that do to modern economies?
It would destroy the global economy and pretty much all of Saudi Arabia's infrastructural investment. They would kill their own markets, and I guess in that way shoot themselves through the foot.
Do you think they're prepared to do that?
I don't. I think it's just a threat, although this is high-level brinksmanship here, and it'll be interesting to see how Trump plays his cards, because he usually, he does what he says he's going to do, but he's looking for an escape hatch simply because Saudi Arabia is so important to our strategic interests in the Middle East, not to mention our supply of oil.
Do you think then they'll try to come up with a plausible excuse for this happening?
Yeah, they will, and it'll be maybe a little bit hard to swallow. But again, we're just looking for something that meets the demands of face saving, and it doesn't have to be airtight.
Rick, what's your thoughts on gold right now?
It's had a pretty good lift here. I've been skeptical of any rally, but I'm looking for, if it touches, I think it's 1254 and change, that's when this thing would start looking interesting. I don't know really that we've had the sea change in the global financial picture to cause gold to really take off for real here. And I think that's what it'll take. When we see gold in an amazing rally, it means that something really big has changed. It would be possibly in the dollar, in U.S. interest rates, but I don't even see the trend in interest rates as being favorable toward higher gold prices.
Do you think the U.S. dollar is going to continue to rise if interest rates keep going up?
Yes, I do. And I've had a very bullish call on the dollar for a long, long time. It's had a pretty difficult correction, and you could even make a case that since spring there's been a big head and shoulders forming, a bearish head and shoulders in the dollar. But the dollar index currently around 95 and change. I've been forecasting that it would go as high as 120 over time.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me on, Jim. It is always a pleasure.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.